Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to share you guys this new keyboard build that I did for a streamer friend. You can follow the Twitch right here. It's said to be the next best budget gasket mount keyboard, but is it really worth it? Let's stay to the end of the video to find out. So this is the fancy tech final key Origin65A, a 65% keyboard with acrylic casing, suitable for people who want to show off their RGB. A very beautiful keyboard with multiple LED modes and compatible with QMK and VIA. The whole kit is pretty complete, except it doesn't include one component. Let's see if you can identify which. Do take note that this kit does not come with keycaps and switches. So it comes with a bag of 2 knobs, the screw needed, and the gasket mount soft sticker thing. There's also a logo plate thing to be pasted behind your board, which I didn't use because I thought it was ugly. Next, of course, is the PCB. Take note, it's wired, so if you are into Bluetooth, this might not be the one for you. There's also the top casing, of course. As you can see, it's frosted acrylic. Then there's the polycarbonate plate, and it's very flexible, as you can see. I thought this was a wrist rest, but it's actually the bottom mount of the keyboard to elevate the keyboard. There's also the foam and rubber that is placed between the PCB and the plate to reduce the echoing of the key press. Lastly, of course, is the bottom part of the casing, which as you can see is frosted acrylic as well. So do you realize what was missing? If you didn't, the answer is the stabilizer. Yes, they did not include any stabilizer at all, so do take note of this. If you want to purchase this kit, you have to purchase the stabilizer separately. The first thing I realized when I hold the case is that it feels very dusty. I'm not sure is it because that this kit might be kept in the warehouse for a very long time, or it's just because it's a frosted acrylic texture. I decided to use a wet wipe to try and wipe it off, and you can immediately see that it becomes clear up. Although it does, I decided to use a wet wipe to try and wipe it off, and you can immediately see that it becomes clear up, although it doesn't return back to its frosted look after it has dried up. So I will go through the assembly process, but I might not have footage of every single one, so do pardon the video. So before I start, I test out the PCB first to see if it's working well and if any of the LED is not working. Normally you might want to test out each key first, but I'm too lazy to put in the switches. So as I connect it, it actually blinded me for a moment as I wasn't expecting it to be this bright. You need to screw the USB port to the case manually yourself, and it doesn't come attached to the PCB. I do a simple tape mode on the bottom of the PCB. Not exactly sure if this is the best choice, but I always do this to my keyboard. I'll explain why I think you shouldn't do the tape mode first in the later part of the video. I then place the foam and rubber onto the board. It should fit nicely. Next, I paste the cushion sticker onto the plate. There's a few discussion on whether to paste it on the board or on the plate, but I decided to go with the plate instead. It just feels more correct in my opinion. After that is done, I just place the top casing on it, just to take a look at how the end product will look like. Not screwing in yet, since I still need to place in the stabilizer. I wholly modded the stabilizer. It was a painful process, but definitely needed. After that, I proceed to put in the stabilizer. This is when I realized maybe I should have put in the stabilizer first before I tape it, as now it's a lot harder to screw in. So do make sure to put in your stabilizer first before the tape modding. After all the stabilizer is screwed in, I proceed to reassemble everything. This is when I realized as the plate is polycarbonated, its default state is a little bit bent, thus some of the stabilizer looks like it barely fits to the gap of the plate. Afraid that the plate is too far from the PCB and thus might give some problem for the switches to touch the PCB, I tried to bend it back a little bit. I tested it with the spacebar to make sure that the plate is not disrupting the key itself, and it looks good actually. Once I'm pretty sure everything is working properly, I then screw the case together. Next is usually the easiest part, putting in the switch, but in this case it's pretty tough. I'm using Gateron Brown version 2 for this build, but I recommend a full clear switch like Aqua King to make it fully shine. Since there's the layer of foam on the plate, the connecting gap of the PCB might be covered by the foam if it's just a little bit off. You have to manually adjust the foam if it's off, or tear it off if it can't be moved. It took me quite a bit of effort and strength to press it into the keyboard. And in the process of it, I actually totally damaged one of the switches. So before you put it on your keycap, of course test out your key to make sure the switch isn't damaged when you put it in. There's usually some that doesn't work, so you have to pluck it out and unbend the pins and then put it back again. Lastly of course is the keycap. In this case, my friend chose this bamboo color keycaps, which feels very nicely with the acrylic case due to its soft colors. And with that, the board is complete. But before I go into the sound test, let me share what I feel about this Origin65A and if it's worth the money. Overall, the build feels very solid and in my opinion does not feel cheap at all as compared to all my previous budget builds such as GK68. The sound is very satisfying and I have to say it's one of the top-tier builds I've ever done. Really love the sound. The assembly process of the board feels like the board isn't properly cut or printed. One example is the stabilizer to plate situation which I mentioned earlier. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. The case side looks very neat. Love the subtle rounded corner while keeping the angular look on the board. Although I don't really like the line that divides the board from the top and bottom, but I guess there's no way to keep that part of the board subtle since it's acrylic. As this is a south-facing PCB, the LED shines through very nicely together with the white keycaps. The knob itself has a nice feel to it and you know how much you turn it. If I'm not wrong, there's a 12 point of turning for the knob, just like a clock. You can also press on it. The gasket portion of it is pretty good as well, as you can see here, sufficient to absorb some impact while typing, while at the same time not too much to compress as you type. The USB port however feels very flimsy and loose as you can see, although it's not a huge issue. The bottom of the keyboard does not have any rubber as well, thus it's very easy to move your keyboard around. If you are someone who prefers your keyboard to not shift around as you game, you might want to consider adding some sort of rubber footing to the bottom of the keyboard. I'll end the video here with sound test. Thanks for watching and let me know what do you think about this keyboard and I'll see you guys on the next video.